I am Jeff Parsons, an alcoholic and a drug addict. I was raised, got a good mother and daddy. We was raised on a dairy farm, and like most kids, they had chores and stuff when they got off the school bus. But me and my brother, we had responsibilities. We had to tend to the baby calves, and we got up in the morning before we went to school and give them a bottle in the morning, one in the afternoon. Make sure they had feed and water and hay, and if they got sick and did not have water, we had to answer to Daddy why. Why was the job not getting done? And because that was our future, the replacement heifers and stuff. But my daddy, he drank a little bit. He'd go for years, and he wouldn't drink. We went to church as young kids, but one day he'd be drunk. And there's never much said about it. Mama, she'd fuss and get on to him about drinking, and he'd quit for a minute. But the bank never come and repossessed anything. And we had motorbikes and three-wheelers and four-wheelers, and the lights never got cut off, and bank never come and repoed anything, so thought everything was okay. But when I walked across that stage in 1985 and got my high school diploma, if you would have told me that I was going to become a drug addict and an alcoholic, I would have told you that you was crazy. That ain't going to never happen to me. Because I had big dreams for my life, and I was going to go into timber business, cut logs. But my high school sweetheart, she come up pregnant. Here I was, 18 years old, fixing to start a business and a family. I'd already started drinking a little bit in high school, but there was never much said about it. It just, But me and my girlfriend, we got married, and her daddy owned a bar. And on the weekends, that's where we was at. We was up there dancing and carrying on. Clyde told me to say dancing, but I got to get that right. But we was acting crazy. Over the years, I had another son. We'd leave them with the parents and my parents and whoever else, and we'd go to the bar. But at that time, I never realized the pain, the suffering, and the financial loss that becoming an alcoholic and a drug addict was going to cost me. I started logging. My dad, he helped me there for a year or two, and he decided he was going to get out of it. He was going to go back to the farm and milk cows. So he knew a man that was in the logging business, and he hooked us up. So for many years, we worked together every day. But he drank a little, too, and, we worked and drank and carried on, went on, but thought life was some kind of normal. Had a little place down on the river. We'd go down there and party and drink and fish and live it up, so to speak. But somewhere along the way, I got introduced to cocaine. And at first, it was just a little bit, just for the weekends, and a little bit turned into a whole lot. And then I started selling the stuff. At first, I was just going to sell enough of it to take care of my habit. But it got out of control. My wife left, divorced me. There I was, homeless. I never, to this day, understand that too. They didn't have a home to go to after the divorce. Never spent much time with my boys or my family. I lived with this one and that one. When they had thrown me out, sometimes I'd run back to my dad and my mom. I'd stay there for a few minutes until I found somebody else. And this went on for years. I couldn't get all the numbers and the years, the exact dates on it, but there I was, nowhere to go, just a little camper down on the river. And I told y'all, I had responsibilities growing up on the farm, but I don't know where all that went. Talk on the street, I was fixing to get busted for selling cocaine. So I carried this old girl to the river one weekend, and we fished and partied all weekend. And that Monday morning, she took me home with her. And I was in between places, didn't have nowhere to go. I think I was staying my old logging partner at the side at the time. So we decided we was going to start trucking over the road, get away from the cocaine and stuff. I'd done a little trucking over the years, in between logging jobs. I'd haul some freight and some lumber and stuff. And so she went and got her CDL driver's license, and we started trucking. It was all working out good. My cocaine use and and selling it had slowed down to nothing. The drinking had slowed down. Because you couldn't even have a beer or nothing in a commercial vehicle. They'd charge you a big fine. It was always against the law. But after some years of doing some kind of good, we decided we was going to start hauling cattle. So we went to Nashville, Tennessee, to the Peterbilt store, and we got us a brand new truck, man. I was so happy. I spec'd that truck out. And we started running trucks. We started running cattle from the east to the west, doing good. Man, we was blowing smoke. We was rolling, doing good. One Friday afternoon, I was going to load west out of Culleoka, Tennessee, and she couldn't make the trip. Had something to do at home and couldn't go, so I took the trip myself. I made it all the way out to Woodard, Oklahoma, and I was just about past going. Because, when they loaded that stock on that truck, they had to go. It wasn't no stopping. You couldn't stop, take you a break. They had to be off in that trailer. So I told this man I was running with him, I said, man, I don't think I'm going to be able to. I can't hardly hold my eyes open no more. He said, I got something up here in this truck that'll help you. He said, you cool, ain't you? I said, yeah, I'm cool. He said, yeah, I've heard about it. He said, well, come on up here. I walked upside the trailer, upside his truck, got up in there. He unlocked the door and got up there, and I sat down. I said, what is that you got? He said, crystal meth. I said, crystal meth? He said, yeah, buddy. He said, angels in heaven made this stuff, especially for bull haulers. I said, wow. All right. He drew me out a little line there on his clipboard where he did his logbook, rolled up a dollar bill, boy, and I whiffed it up. Boy, that's just like a charge, like a new man, like just woo, couldn't believe it. We talked there a few minutes, and then we took off. We was going up to Walsh, Colorado, to a feed yard. We both unloaded the same place. We backed up there at the chute and unloaded, pulled off, and we got out there. And he asked me how I felt. I said, oh, man, I feel good. He said, you want to do another? I said, well, sure. And he scratched us that one across that little old clipboard, and I whiffed it up, drove all the way back to Pulaski, Tennessee, home. Man, me and my girlfriend, the girl I was living with at the time, we took another trip out west. We got to talking about that crystal meth. It was a stressful job hauling those cattle. You couldn't sleep. So we decided that we might be going to try us just a little bit of it. Oh, buddy, he'd give me his number. I wrote it down on a book or something, and so I called him up, asked him if he had any more of that stuff. He said, sure. So we met up. We got us a little bit, and at first, it was just like the doggone cocaine. As time went on, a little turned into a lot. And then I got to selling it, hauling it back in the truck just to take care of my habit. And all y'all ever know, if y'all ever been high or drunk, you can't do it with your girlfriend or wife. It just don't work out. I mean, you'll be arguing, you'll hide it from her, she'll hide it from you. You'll be doing more than her, and it don't never work out. So it caused us a big argument, and there was nothing but trouble. We argued, fussed, and fought over the crystal meth. I'd caught a few charges because of it, trying to hide it from her, with too much to go into. But so I took another trip by myself because we was arguing and fussing and fighting. Went out there, and I got back off the trip. I pulled in at the little store down where we left the trailer. There it sat. That old truck I had, everything in it that I owned, tools and all, was sitting there at the bottom of that store in the truck, pickup truck. So there I was again, homeless. Nowhere else to go because I lived for her for 7 or 8, 10 years. Built a little shop there on her property, and we was, just her. She run me off. So we sold the truck. So I just bombed around for a few years, just here and there. But I run into an old guy that he knew how to manufacture meth. And oh my Lord. I didn't know at the time, but it was a full-time doggone job just trying to get the ingredients to make the meth. If you was going to make enough to go to jail for it, it was a job trying to run down the stuff to try to make it. So it was the beginning of the end for me. So it went on for about a year or two, and Late one afternoon, the drug force came in and busted in. Boy, they get on the ground. They come through that door. I was living in a little raggedy old trailer right there. They kicked that door so hard it knocked the door up off the hinges. I was high. It like just freaked me out. They grabbed me, throw that gun to my head. Get on the ground. But I was just loaded me up, put us, me and the cook. They carried us to town. We sat up there and boy, in a long list of charges from manufacturing to resale. Ended up putting me up on a $750,000 bond. They dressed us out in that old orange old suit, boy. That thing smelled like a rodeo goat, like it ain't been washed in 100 years. But it's just, gosh, I ain't never smelt nothing like it. They dressed us out, took us up back at that pod. He rolled that door. They closed that door behind me. I don't know if any of y'all have ever been locked up before, but that is a sound that you will never forget when they slam that door behind you. And anybody know what I'm talking about? It'll run all the way down your backbone, man. I knew that I was in a lot of trouble. I sat there in that cell the rest of the night. A million, zillion, trillion things was going through my mind. That next morning, they rolled that door, and I went out over there and called one of my old running buddies, the one that I thought would always be there, no matter what. I thought they would be there I thought he would be there. They answered the phone. I told him, I said, man, y'all come up here and get me out. You know. He said, call me back tomorrow. I said, all right, buddy. I will. But I said, be early now. They're going to roll my door about this time in the morning. But I could tell his voice was a little shaky. Next morning, they rolled my door. I went over at that telephone, called, and it rang, and it rang, and it rang. Finally, it would say, no answer from them, but I'd hang. I bet you I called that number probably 100 times that hour I was out. The next morning, that old door rolled, and I went over to the phone, dialed that number. That time, somebody answered. They said, we no longer accept calls to this installation. Man, that hurt like crazy. Old road dog, my running buddy. The one I thought would always be there. They didn't even take a phone call from him. Day or two later, the old door rolled back. The guard said, come on, you got a visitor. But he didn't tell me to get my stuff. And you know, if they bailing you out, they tell you to get your belongings and come on and go with me. So I walked in up at the door, and I asked the guard, I said, on the way up, I said, who was it? He said, it's your daddy. I said, oh, me. I said, he didn't bail me out. He said, no. He just wants to talk to you. So we got up there in that visitation. Daddy ain't never been nothing. They had to talk to him through that phone in the wall, and I had to try to point to him where it was. He finally got his phone up to his ear. He said, boy, me and your mama, we ain't gonna bail you out. We ain't gonna do it. He said, you might run off, might kill yourself or something. So we can't never tell about you. He said, do you even know when the last time we even laid eyes on you? This time I done got to crying. I said, no, I ain't got no idea. But he said, we told you and told you and told you and told you and told you what you was doing was going to catch up with you. He had me 6 pair of socks, 6 pair of underwear, 6 T-shirts. He said, we're going to show you something called tough love. He said, the sheriff said you're going to go away for a while. So we're just going to leave you up here. But you know, the only people that came to see me was the ones that hurt the most. My mom and my dad and my sister. My brother, he had got killed in a car wreck several years before, but I think my son, they may come a couple of times. But one weekend, my mama came to see me, and she had a Bible in her hand, and give it to me. So I took it back to the cell and started reading it, because I had all the time, man. That facility, it was 23 hours a day and an hour out. I got to read in that Bible. I read where he said, I will never leave you or forsake you. And I said, John Brown, I need him. I need that rascal. My mom and daddy, they showed me something called tough love. Took me years to understand that. My old road dog, I ain't seen him, ain't sent no money on the books, ain't sent nothing up there. Ain't seen hide and hair, none of them. So, read where I could be planted down by a river, by a tree. Be planted down by a river, be a tree would get me some deep roots and get me a big stronghold. And maybe everything I would do would prosper. I got to thinking about that. You know, boy, I sure ain't prospering up here doing this 23-1, 3 deep in a cell. I read where he said he'd pick me up out of a murky pit of clay. Read about old David. Old David, a little bit like me. He about half. He was a rambler too. But you know, if you ever been locked up, you have no excuse to hear about Jesus Christ. Because somebody comes there every night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they come in there and they talk to you. But this man came in there on Monday night, y'all. He could make you believe what he was saying, man. He was a good speaker. He was a car dealer, but boy, he could talk. He could make you feel what he was saying. He talked about Acts 1, 2, and 3. He said you had to be baptized, wash away your sins, and receive something called the Holy Spirit. A comforter, he said, would come and help you get through your life. He talked about Romans 6, 7, and 8. He gave an example. If you was headed up I-65 in a northbound lane going south, what would you do? We laughed around. We'd turn around, go the other way. You know, he said, well, that's exactly what you got to do. You got to stop, repent, try to get over and try to get the heading in the right direction. Change your life. Several weeks went by. He came in there one Monday night. A man on the bottom of the pier down there said, I want to be baptized. Another two down on they said, I do too. I was up on the top. I want to be baptized too. And he come up, he come up there on that pile. He wrote our names down on a little letter. Went down there, kept on talking about Acts 1, 2, and 3 and Romans 6, 7, 8. A few weeks later, the guard came, rolled the doors, said, y'all come on, y'all going to get baptized. So we went out on that Sally Port. I'll never forget that day. April the 28th, 2004. We all went out there and got baptized and come on back in. I kept reading my Bible. Months went by. And I seen where I might be able to be going to get on something they had called drug court. So I called my dad and asked him to call old Steve. He was a guy that I growed up with him and played with him in school and stuff. And he worked on a construction company. So I called Daddy to tell him to see if he'd give me a job. So he called him and he said, sure. I just fired him an operator. See, he said, I'd be glad to give Jeff a job. So I went on there, got out, went back to my mom and dad's. The first week out, I got my driver's license back. They done expired while I was locked up. I had to go take that test and get my driver's license back. I got them back. Went to the parole place, got all that set up where I was coming, where the job was over here in Ripley, Tennessee. So I had to get all that. They started getting it together while I was locked up. I had to go meet them, and they give me all the rules and all this kind of stuff. And I got all that took care of. But I still didn't have no vehicle that would make it over here. But I read in that Bible where Jesus said, I'll give you what you need, not what you want. I told Jesus, I said, Jesus, I got to have a ride. Because I didn't know, my dad and him still talking about that tough love. I didn't know what they was going to do to help me to get over here. So I went in there, come in there at the evening. Daddy told me, he said, Miss Dixon's got a truck for sale. I said, she does? He said, yeah, I'd never laid eyes on this woman. Never seen her before in my life. Daddy said, you want to go look at it? And I well, sure. Well, I want to go look at it. We got up to her house, and she talked to me. She said she thought I was going to be different. She said, they was talking there a little bit about me and the church and all this. And she said she talked to her brother. She said the truck's worth about $3,000. She said, can you pay $200 a month? I said, well, sure. I'm going to work next week. Y'all, she took me up at that courthouse. She paid for the tags, put the title over in my name that day. Just signed the truck over to me. Never knew me from nowhere. So that Sunday morning, I got up. I told Daddy, I said, I'm going to church. I was going to go up there with a man that came to talk to me. Daddy said, you want you and your mama to go with you? I said, well, sure, if y'all want to. That'll be all right. We got on up there, and I done called old man Popham and told him I was coming. He was waiting outside for him. He was all dressed up. I told him, and he took us in that church, and they got to welcome us, talking to us. He took us all the way down to the second row from the front. We sat there, I figured everybody was staring at me. Anyways, I just got out of prison. I figured everybody we lived in a small town. Everybody knew us, it was a big embarrassment. But anyway, they all welcomed us. That afternoon, I headed out to my new job, my new life with Christ in Ripley, Tennessee. At Wednesday night, I went up there at that church. I went there for about 6 or 7 years, I guess it was. And I told the Lord, if you get me out here, I'm going to try to tell people about you and about a new life. Because they told me in AA, I went to AA while I was locked up, and they said, sometimes you just got to get away. So anyway, I went on over at up at Ripley to the church and started a jail ministry over there at Lauderdale County Jail. And had a relationship or two, didn't work out. But then after some years, I got married to a girl, and she didn't like the church that I was going to, so we looked around and found another. We stayed there for about 13 years, I think it was. And I served on the Kairos prison ministry. That's where you go into prison on Tuesday through Sunday and go back a couple of times a year, one time a month for a reunion. And I started doing the prison ministry down there in that church where we went on Monday night and talked to the prisoners. I started to celebrate recovery down at the West Tennessee State Prison in the drug rehab down there. I can help prisoners when they get out, give them a job and give them a place to stay. But somewhere along the way, a storm came. We all know about them storms, don't we, Eddie? The storms will come. Eddie said he didn't know, but Jesus was trying to tell him something. I don't know what Jesus was trying to tell me, but a hurricane came. I don't know what happened. I got off in the right lane, on the wrong lane, I guess. I got to heading south, going north. Got divorced after 13 years. 13 years. One day I was in a heck of a mess. I called my buddy Clyde. Me and Clyde go way back. He told me about this place here. He said they got a life recovery. I said, well, I've done everything but that. I ain't never done no life control. He said it's about the same thing, just different name. So I said, all right, I'm gonna try it. So I started coming down here, picked up that old white chip. Been acting in this church, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. Just then me and Angie reconnected. We ain't seen each other, and she's back there somewhere. She's back there in the back, smiling. Me and Angie, we reconnected after about 20 or 30 years. I ain't seen her, and we both started some kind of over right here in this church. She helps cook the meals and does the kids every once in a while, I guess, and just want to just thank y'all for accepting us here at this church. And it's my life has changed so much different. I got a job I've been on for 20 years. I got a government job. Ain't no way in the world that I'm supposed to have the job I got, but Jesus give me what I needed. I needed a job. Jesus give me a job, and got a little herd of cattle out there. And just got a mortgage now. Got a house payment. Got a place to stay. But the most important thing about this whole talk that I'm sitting up here talking about is my mom and dad. You remember me telling y'all they went to church with me that Sunday morning the first time I went 22 years ago? My daddy ain't drank a drop in 22 years. You know? He's a deacon in that church today. My mama, she's very active in the church. You know, I called over there a while back and asked Mama what she was going to do. They live about 4 or 5 hours. And I said, Mama, what you going to do? What you got planned today? She said, oh, I'm carrying the seniors to Nashville. I said, to Nashville? I said, where are you taking them in? She said, the church bus. She's a senior herself. She's dang near 80 years old. She said, I'm carrying them in the church bus. I said, Lord, how? I said, can you drive that bus? She said, well, sure, I can drive that bus. I called over in the morning. I was getting ready to make sure. I want to make sure Daddy was a deacon. I didn't want to say that. She said, well, yeah, I think he is. I don't, you know. I said, what y'all doing this morning? She said, we going to church. We started a little thing where we go up there in the morning times. You know, they're very active in the church. Thank God my daddy showed me something called tough love. Because, y'all, I had no intentions on getting clean when I did. No intentions whatsoever. Thank God my mama brought me that Bible. And volunteers came on Monday night that I really connected with and helped me understand a new way of life without depending on drugs and alcohol to deal with life. I said it first, I'm Jeff Parsons. I'm an alcoholic and drug addict. Y'all, I had to take the first step and admit that, hey, I'm Jeff Parsons. I'm powerless over my addictions, and my life had become unmanageable. I'm standing here today with the help of Jesus Christ and the people who give me guidance and strength to stay sober one day at a time. God is my refuge and my strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. Thank y'all.